They've scored 6 goals and conceded 1. And it started with a 3-1 win against Porto, and now they've just beaten Marseille 3-0. And they even managed to do this without their 2 strikers, Jesus and Aguero, who are both injured at the moment, through Raheem Sterling, a makeshift striker, which has proved he's very good at being a striker as well as a winger, which he's more well known for. Now, they're currently actually 13th on the table. However, a win with their game in hand that they do have and move them up to 5th place. Now, a little interesting fact about Man City. In the last 4 years, they've actually spent over €500 million on defenders. Now, this includes 9 defenders and 2 goalkeepers. They've actually still managed to concede, though, 8 goals in their 5 games in the Premier League this season. However, in their defence, Ruben Diaz was actually only playing in 3 of those matches where they conceded 2 goals, 1 against Leeds and 1 against West Ham. Now, it goes without saying as well that Man City are desperate for a win. They've only done it twice this season. However, it's really not as bad as it sounds for Man City because they've still got massive players fit for them like De Bruyne, Sterling, Walker, Bernardo Silva and Ederson, just to name a few. And there's plenty other dangerous players that are across the pitch we'll have to look out for. Now, I think for us, it's going to be a question of which City turns up. I think away from home, they can be slightly unpredictable at times. I think especially if you box them in and you don't give them any breathing space, then they can struggle defensively. But the problem with that is if you box them in too much, you leave yourself exposed defensively, and all they have to do is get one player on the ball with an eye for a pass, which is basically all of them, and one outlet, one person through on goal, and they're probably going to score 9 times out of 10, which is why it very rarely works. But if it's your day, it will work. If it's not your day, you'll get battered 5-0. Simple as that. And I think considering where we are at the moment, it probably is worth a risk. However, I would say on the contrary that if you look at teams being relegated in the recent years, it seems to be a very high correlation that the ones which go down tend to get battered by City. Now, just to name you a few of these teams which have been relegated and lost to City by a huge margin. Huddersfield, they lost 6-1. Watford, they lost 8-0. Stoke, they lost 7-2. QPR lost 6-0 and Norwich lost 7-0. Now, all of these teams actually lost away at City, so that's one promising thing, that even if we were to get battered in this game, the fact that it was at Bramwell Lane instead may give us a bit of optimism. Another thing to bear in mind is you could argue, oh, maybe they just score loads of goals, so it's against loads of teams, and it's just a coincidence that these were teams relegated. But in their 9 all-time biggest victories in the Premier League history, 5 of those were those games I mentioned. And yet, at the same time, I'm kind of contradicting what I'm saying, but I do feel that where we are this time at the moment, I know Wilder says he never wants to back down and give teams too much respect. So with those facts considered, do you think it'd be worth giving it a go? West Ham, obviously a lot better team on paper than us. They gave Man City a very good running for a game and drew them close all the way. And maybe towards the end, Man City pushed them back and they had to hold on. But throughout most of the game, while they had a lot of energy left, West Ham, they did look like they could have won it. Now, carrying on with West Ham, they did also show there was a lot of chinks in the armour for Man City, especially defensively. But I'm sure they'll be very, very motivated to prove everyone wrong about that. Now, moving on to us as a team and reflecting on us, I don't really know what there is to say positively. I'm not saying we had that bad a season. The points does show it hasn't been a great one. I think it's pretty easy to say that there's not really much to talk about attackingly because we only scored 3 goals and one's been from open play. And defensively, we've missed our best defender in terms of ability, and that's showing because we've conceded so many goals this season as well. So both areas of the pitch aren't looking too promising because we're conceding a lot of goals, we're not scoring many. So I think having Stevens slot in as our left centre back is going to help. He gives us a lot of stamina, which was similar to Basham. So you could hope if we are thinking about using the overlapping centre backs again this season, he's probably the best one to go for because Robinson, fair enough, he's not used to the system. He's only played with us almost for a year now, and in terms of how to play with that role, it's going to take a lot of time to do that, and maybe he'll never be able to do it, we don't know, but for now he can't. He does very good long throws, so he's good in some areas which O'Connor wasn't, but in terms of the actual defending, he's not close. So I think that's why it's ideal to go for Stevens, and I think we've got 2 other decent left wing backs now as well, in that we have Lowe and Osborne playing there as well, and Osborne can play in midfield as well, which makes him a versatile player, which is always nice to have people which can play more than one position. Now, I've only seen the McBurney-Brewster partnership for around 50 minutes to 60. McBurney actually played well. Brewster didn't play very well, if I'm honest. Playing against his teammates, I'm sure they knew about his style and how he played, so it was a lot harder for him. Playing in a defensively minded tactic system, it was hard for him to get on the ball. And considering we were a defensive team against Liverpool, not much was seen from it. But from the McBurney side of it, it looked promising. He looked like he was more comfortable in his position on the pitch. So possibly if Brewster was given more space and at home be more comfortable in possession, then possibly we could see a lot more of it in the Man City game. I feel if McBurney was to win the headers and Brewster was to chase the flick-ons, it'd be a very successful partnership. And as long as we're more positive than we were in the Liverpool game, you can imagine there'd be more chances for him as well. Now, one thing I've noted this season, which I have mentioned on the videos, is that going wide, we haven't created as much, which is where a lot of our chances do come from. I think that's down to teams figuring us out, which makes sense. It's been 1 year in the Premier League, so it's going to happen. So I think chances are going to have to come through the middle now as well. Considering we have 3 midfielders, you'd think there's a pretty easy chance of that happening more often as long as they get on the ball and they drive forward rather than going sideways. sideways and backwards, which is something we don't tend to do. So it's just about trying to find those passes. And I think although Man City are a great team, defensively they're not the best. So in terms of trying to go for them, it's promising, especially considering they've conceded 8 goals in 5 games this season. Now adding on to that, they've got 2 new defenders in Ake and Ruben Diaz, which probably still to gel the team. It's only been early doors for them, so that's another positive sign for us. I think they're still very weak on their left side, which is why they're playing Cancelo there, who's a right-footed player. He's slotted in quite well, but maybe that's something to exploit. You know, if you get him onto his left foot, I don't know how strong that is. It could be something to think about. Now, going back to the Liverpool game, I think, like I said, it was very hard to take at the time. Not that I'm feeling happy about it now, I'm still quite frustrated. I would say that it's a bit easier to take down to the fact that when you see the games midweek, they did go in our favour. It would have been nice to see if Brighton could have beaten West Brom, who are at the moment currently one of our relegation rivals. But to see Burnley lose against Spurs was promising, because although Spurs are a better team on paper, you feel it's a sort of game where Burnley could have easily grinded out a 1-0 win, especially playing at home. And a lot of times they could have done it. I didn't see the second half, I only saw the first. It was obviously a relief to see Spurs win it, because it meant we got away with one. Now going on to the lineup, I think we're probably going to stick to what we had against Liverpool in that match. There were pros and cons for the Anfield match. I think, in my opinion, there were some more cons than we talked about. I think, like I mentioned in the reaction video, I think people were slightly too positive about the game considering we'd lost. But saying that, I think in terms of setting up against the Man City team, it's probably the likely lineup to go for. The only change I'll make is Lundstram. I'll make a separate video about this soon, about why I think he won't be playing in the near future. But to sum up briefly, as most of you Blades fans will know, he hasn't signed a new contract, and that's not going to be happening anymore 99%, and we're going to be looking to sell him in January by the looks of it. And so I think, although he's going to give his all for the team, it's not really ideal to sort of play a player which his heart isn't in it. Also, you know, to sort of look around alternatives in the meantime while we're looking for someone else in January. So for that reason, I would like to see us play Osborne in midfield instead of Lundstram. It's a bit more of an outlet as well, a bit more creativity, because although Lundstram gives his all for the team and has a great engine, creatively doesn't really give too much to the team. So I think against Man City, where chances are going to be at premium like they usually are for us, it's important as ever to have creativity in the midfield. And then because Osborne's playing left wing back, of course, in that game against Liverpool, I'd then like to see Lowe come back into left wing back, which he would have done most likely against Liverpool as well, but due to the fact that he had a concussion injury and he wasn't actually allowed to play due to the new rules of the Premier League, it meant we couldn't play him, obviously. So now that he's back and he's fit, I think it's no brainer to play him there. So going into actual predictions of the match, I think for the first time this season we're actually on a high in confidence. You know, although we lost against Liverpool, I think the players will be feeling a bit happy with themselves, because there were good performances, and I think man to man everyone played well. It was just the fact that we couldn't create enough offensively, like I keep going on like a broken record. So if we take our chance against City, playing home always has an advantage. Even though there's not a crowd there to cheer them on, I'm sure it'll still make enough of a difference for them. And I think Berg has proved that he's really improving game by game. So I think this is a game, although it's against a really good Man City team, if he takes by the scruff of the neck. Now a little side comment on Berg, I feel like in the Premier League with a lot of the teams which are outside the top 6, they tend to have one player in their team which helps them grind results, which they look to win games. If you look at Crystal Palace, they've got Wilfried Zaha. If you look at Aston Villa, they've got Jack Grealish. If you look at Everton at the moment, it's James Rodriguez. If you look at Southampton, it's Ward-Prowse. If you look at West Ham, it's Declan Rice. For Wolves, it's João Moutinho. Now all those players I mentioned midfielders, and most of them are creative, but I think especially Grealish and Zaha are a class above their teammates in terms of the ability they have. I feel like for Berg, he has potential to be a class above his teammates for us at United. So I think if he can do that, he can be that sort of player for us. And at the moment, he's not really a creative player. He's more sort of, he breaks up the play and starts the attacks. But I think in terms of his potential, if he gets fit enough, because I listened to Wilder's press conference and he said that Berg, when he played his first game against Palace, barely lasted 60 minutes and was flat out on his feet by the end of it. Apparently working his fitness ever since that match, and so he's getting fitter day by day. You can see when he's playing that box-to-box midfield role that he does look quite tired by the end of the match, if not before the match is finished. He's getting there, and if he can perfect that role, that could be definitely something you can look at, because like I mentioned in a previous video, when you see him run, he's so big and he's so strong that he easily has potential to just barge and storm his way through players, that if even someone tries to stop him, he can just run through them. It doesn't matter who's in his way. And I think if you can do that, he will be the player to start our attacks. I think he's on that level of a Grealish and a Zaha, where he can just be the player which is a class above all of others, and we rely on him to win games and grind out results. Simple as. Now let me know in the comments if you agree with that or not. I think I'm making a decent point here, and I think there's an element of truth to it, especially for a lot of these teams, and I think that's why there's no surprise why Palace have always done decent in the Premier League, because of a player like Zaha staying there that whole time. So that's why I'm going to go 2-1. I think if it was that score, it wouldn't be like a 1-0 City 2-1 to our sequence. It would definitely be a 2-0 to us, and we'd probably have to hold on to a 2-1 in the last few minutes sort of sequence. But I think that's being very ambitious. You know, I'm always ambitious as a fan. You just want to keep my hopes up. I don't want to go in watching a match where I already think we're going to lose 2-0. It's just what's the attitude, what's the point in that? So that's my predictions. I'm sure a lot of you will definitely disagree with that, and please let me know in the comments what you think it will be. And until next time, guys, take it easy. Up the blades, come on.